The Beretta 92G Elite LTT RDO is the brainchild of the Italian firearms company Beretta and Ernest Langdon. Ernest is a rare breed. He's a retired Marine and a world-class competitor. Ernest rose through the ranks of USPSA and IDPA shooting the Beretta 92 platform. The 92G Elite LTT represents his opinion of what amounts to the best in breed, the frame of a 92A1 or an M9A1 with the Vertec M9A3 slide. Since the gun has his name on it, all the RDO guns come complete with a Langdon Tactical Technologies trigger job. I'm David with Gun Deals, and today we're going to be looking at the Beretta 92G Elite LTT RDO. So if you're like me, when I first got started into handguns and you're reading the internet about the Beretta 92, most of what you're going to find is like 10 to 15-year-old comments on places like ARFCOM talking about how all of the Berettas are terrible pistols, the 92's just terrible, Glocks are way better, and that's what I believed for a long time until I got my hands on the Beretta 92G Elite LTT. These guns are incredible. When you pick up a plastic striker gun, you pick it up and like, okay, this is a plastic striker gun. Cool. When you pick up an LTT Beretta, you think, this is something I wouldn't mind handing down to my kids. And based around the price point, you're probably going to want to because these things are not cheap. These things come in tipping the scale at about $1,500. So by no means is this an inexpensive gun. However, it might be worth it. So here's why the Beretta is kind of an overlooked jewel. First and foremost, it does not use a Browning tilt lock action. When the slide reciprocates, the barrel is actually fixed in the frame. It does not tilt up and down like your Glocks or 1911s or anything like that. It stays fixed in the frame. As such, it feeds just about anything into the chamber as the rounds are basically shoved straight into the chamber. It can take just about anything. And because of the falling locking block design, the slide is basically hollowed out in the front. So the gun moves the slide very quickly. The ejection is super reliable because you have basically 180 degrees for cases to find its way out. Since the firing pin block and the decocker are both in the slide, there's nothing to affect the trigger pull. A lot of guns with firing pin blocks end up with a lot of creep in their trigger pull. That's just not a thing with the Beretta. The Beretta has a super solid wall that you take the slack out of the trigger, defeat the firing pin block, and you are on the sear, and there is zero movement as you pull through to fire the shot. As the ergonomics are pretty good and the trigger face is nice and broad, it's very easy to get a hold of the trigger, manipulate it straight to the rear. And if you're shooting in anger, shooting fast, the gun, because it is so light, it's about 35 ounces, so it ends up basically acting like a middleweight pistol, which is kind of a good middle ground to be in. It has enough mass where it's easy to aim at the target and recovers from recoil very quickly due to the unique action that it has. But it's lightweight, so you can kind of swing it around, you can carry it with you all day. And to top it all off, Ernest Langdon figured out how to get red dots mounted on top of the gun. So now you can have a gun that's insanely mechanically accurate, very easy to pull the trigger straight to the rear, very easy to hold on target as you're shooting rapidly. And now you can hit absolutely everything because you can use an electronic sight. And taking it one further, it comes with backup iron sights built right into the gun to co-witness with the RMR or the SRO as you see here. Now the RDO series of pistols actually come in 3 sizes. This is the full size that I'm holding here. There's a Centurion model which has the same size grip but about a 4¼ inch barrel. It'd be about like that, and honestly that would be the one I would recommend as kind of the do-all gun. And then there is a compact as well. In the box they're going to come with 3 18-round MechGar magazines, so while the grip is no longer than like a Glock 19 from below the trigger guard, it still holds 18 rounds as it comes from the box, which is an immense amount of firepower. The grips that come on the pistol are G10 grips with the LTT logo in the middle of them. They are thin grips which increase your ability to get onto the trigger, which is good for smaller handed shooters. Diamond texture on the grips is bitey enough to be a good day at the range. It's not aggressive enough as if you were to want to compete with the gun, but it's still a pretty good middle of the road texture, and it's going to let people who are used to plastic framed pistols feel right at home on this, because honestly the proportion of it feels about like a plastic pistol as far as how they've shaped the grip. Getting into the trigger, which is a double action, single action, and what that means is your first pull is going to both pull the hammer to the rear and then release it at the back of the trigger stroke. the gun is going to recoil, and then the hammer is locked in a single action position. So the trigger pull length is very, very short on the single action pull, is very long in the double action stroke. People kind of over stress about how hard it is to shoot a double action auto. It's not any more difficult than shooting a striker fired one. You just have to learn how to lock your wrists out and pull the trigger straight through the back. Don't try and like stage it or anything like that necessarily, but learn how to smoothly pull the trigger straight to the rear, and you'll be just fine. And the trigger pull weights on this gun are pretty legit. This comes with a 6-pound double action and a 3-pound single action. So 6 pounds is going to be more than your typical striker fired gun right off the shelf, but it has a hammer. So if you're going to be sticking this in a holster, you can put your thumb on the back of the hammer, and I cannot make the gun go off with my thumb on the back of the hammer. This is called hammer checking. For a concealed carry gun, this is a very ideal feature to have, as you don't always know the circumstance in which you'll have to be putting the gun into the holster. As it is a 92G, that means it is a decocker only model, which means when you want to go to holster the pistol after you've charged it, you've got a decocker lever on either side, so you just move that down and the hammer drops. The way the mechanism works is it actually tips the face of the firing pin away from the hammer when the hammer falls, but the hammer is fully decocked at this point. The single action trigger is just downright exceptional. The take up, there is a bit of slack, probably more than most single action triggers, but once you get on the wall, it is a super firm wall of only 3 pounds. So as you build pressure on the sear, right before it drops, there is an incredibly small amount of over travel. But more importantly, watch just how much of a swing forward there is when resetting the trigger, which is not a whole lot. Very short reset. So when you're shooting this gun quickly, it's very easy to run the gun fast. And one more premium upgrade that this gun has over the base Beretta models is it comes with a full-length stainless steel guide rod, and all of the springs inside the gun are chrome silicon springs, which are supposed to not ever wear out. We'll see how true that is. I've only got about 7,500 rounds on one of my Berettas, and I've only got about 5,000 on the other, but so far I haven't had any issues due to springs. Another nice feature is the LTT guns come crowned from the factory, so there's not that extra little 1/4 inch of barrel that sticks out past the end of the slide, which is rather nice. Since the 92 has been out forever, things like magazines are very easy to come by and very inexpensive. Since there are a bunch of holster options, the problem is that nobody ever really put suppressor height sights on Beretta pistols before, so having holsters that accommodate the taller sights is a bit of a concern, but if you look, you absolutely can find them. The Meccar 18-round magazines can cost between about $21 to $30, which is a great deal on a great magazine. But ultimately, the Beretta LTT is a very easy gun to live with. I don't like to tell people that there are like do-all pistols that are generally great at everything. Usually it's like if you're good at concealment, then you're kind of compromised as far as shooting experience is concerned. But the Beretta really does come as close to a do-all pistol as I can imagine. So would you consider carrying a Beretta? Let me know in the comments. Appreciate you guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.